The deadline was 9 in the morning on August 14th. The letter arrived on the 12th, less than 48 hours to hand over what may be the most important piece of evidence in the death of an 18-year-old. And the family it was sent to was out of town when it landed. By that week, the story running on national radio was that Nolan Wells's parents were refusing to turn over their son's phone. But there's a letter dated 3 days before that deadline that says the opposite, and once you put the two side by side, the word refusing stops making sense. So what was actually agreed to back in July? And who changed it? On August 10th, Tyler Cox, the attorney representing 3 of Nolan's friends, went on Sirius XM with Dan Abrams. I have reason to believe, and I do believe, that the Wells family have not cooperated with law enforcement. I do not think that they have turned in Nolan's phone, and I'm willing to bet my reputation on that. Not the prosecution, not law enforcement, the friend's lawyer, on national radio, saying the family is withholding evidence. He went further. He said police don't have the phone, that they've never had access to it, and then asked, so how can you say that there's texts missing or there's photographs missing? On the surface, that's a fair question. It only stops being fair when you check the dates. July 15th, 9 days after Nolan's body was found. According to the family's attorneys, they sat down with the DA's office and agreed on a plan, a joint forensic examination. Not a handoff, not a drop-off at a precinct. The family's experts, the DA's office, possibly the FBI. One device, one download, everyone in the room. Then, for almost a month, nothing. No date, no location, no follow-up call. August 11th, the family's attorney writes to the district attorney saying they remain ready and willing. The letter names a lab, the digital forensics facility at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. It raises FBI involvement. It asks prosecutors to help pick a date. August 12th, the district attorney writes back and tells them to deliver the phone directly to law enforcement instead. August 14th, 9 a.m., a deadline the family was physically out of state to meet. Now hold that sequence, because we're going to come back to it. There's one question buried in it that decides everything else. Why would a family insist on being in the room? July 4th, a boat trip to Horn Island, an uninhabited barrier island roughly 10 miles off the Mississippi coast. Nolan Wells, 18, a football player, goes out with friends. They come back. He doesn't. His body is recovered on July 6th. The friend's account is simple. Nolan met a girl and wanted to stay. He told them to go. Treston Shepard told ABC News the group kept their phones on the boat because they were in salt water and didn't want to ruin their devices. So the phones were on the boat. The boat left, and the phones left with it. A mix-up. An accident. Nobody had any reason to touch Nolan's phone. But if nobody touched the phone, where did the Snapchat data go? Christine Wansley says the phone didn't come back the way it left. She told Good Morning America that when family members reviewed it, they found no Snapchat videos or images on either of his accounts. She said the absence was particularly concerning because Nolan routinely took photos and videos at social gatherings, and that it led them to believe material may have been deleted. Think about that. Nolan documented everything, 2 Snapchat accounts, and on July 4th, a holiday, a boat, an island party with hundreds of people, both accounts empty. No snaps, no stories, no videos. Either Nolan didn't touch his phone once that entire day, or someone made sure it looked that way. And it wasn't only the missing content. His parents say they also found location data that conflicted with what they knew of their son and with what his friends described. Not just empty, wiped clean. And the location data didn't match. Which brings us to the question this entire case turns on, and I want you to hold on to it, because everything from here either answers it or dodges it. Was that phone empty because Nolan never used it that day, or because somebody emptied it? Before we go any further, I want to give you the strongest version of the opposite argument, because it exists, and it comes from someone serious. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer weighed in publicly. When you add it all together, what we see publicly seems to be an accident. That is not a random opinion. That's someone with investigative experience looking at what's available and saying the simplest explanation may be the right one. 18-year-olds make impulsive decisions. Water kills strong swimmers. But she added a caveat. I doubt if this, what we know, will come back with the truth. Even the person saying it looks accidental is saying we don't have the full picture yet. So which is it? An accident or something else? There's exactly one thing that can answer that. A full forensic examination of that phone settles three things, and no interview, no press conference, and no podcast can settle any of them. Deletion timestamps. Not just that content is gone, but when it went. If material was removed at 2 in the morning on July 5th, that's a fact about a window when the phone was not in Nolan's hands. Device activity. Unlocks, app launches, pings, whether anyone touched that phone during the hours it was supposedly sitting untouched on a boat. Location history. Whether the device's own record matches the account of where the boat went and when it left. Subpoenas have also gone out to Snapchat, WhatsApp, TikTok, Meta platforms, and Life360, filed by Mississippi attorney Gary Bufkin, because even if content was deleted from the handset, the servers may still hold copies. Retired FBI agent Kieran Ramsey told NewsNation investigators may be able to recover several layers of that data. So the answer may still exist somewhere, on a server, in a backup, on the device itself. The question is who's actually trying to get it. Two independent creators, Just Brit and Nerdy Pink Panda, have been doing something the networks haven't. They've been putting statements side by side, date-stamped, and letting the contradictions speak. Start with the very first phone call, the one that set this whole night in motion. Listen to what both of those have in common. In Warren's version and in Christine's version, he doesn't mention the phone until after she confronts him with the Life360 location. She had to catch it. It wasn't volunteered. And in that same call, Warren tells her he knows somebody in the Coast Guard and he's going to call them, which is a very different thing from calling the Coast Guard. That distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. The Coast Guard's initial public statement said they weren't informed until 12:30. Then that changed. So somewhere between a friend saying he'd make a call and an official agency correcting its own notification timeline, there's a stretch of hours on the night of July 4th where nobody can tell you with certainty who was told what. And during those same hours, Nolan's phone was in somebody else's possession. Here's what happened next, in the friend's own words. 10 to 15 people came looking for Nolan that night. The friends themselves call it confrontational. An address was demanded and given. The group went on to a second property. One of the young men called 911. Warren has said he wasn't at the house when the family came for the phone, and also that the phone was in his truck during that first conversation, which would mean that somewhere between 11 and 1 in the morning, after an angry phone call, that phone moved from a vehicle into Jax's house. And if a family had to be removed from two separate properties by police that night, why is there no record of it? Where are the incident reports from July 4th? That's not a theory. That's a records request nobody has filed. Which brings us back to where we started, and now the sequence reads differently. A mother is told her son's phone came back with both Snapchat accounts wiped and location data that doesn't match. She asks for one thing, to have her own expert present when that device is opened. July 15th, that's agreed. Then a month of silence. Then a letter naming a lab, naming the FBI, asking for a date. Then the terms change to, just hand it over. Then 48 hours. And then the narrative becomes, the family is refusing to cooperate. Does that sound like a refusal to you? Or does it sound like a setup? The family never said no. They said they want to be in the room when it happens. That is not what a cover-up looks like. That is what a family looks like when they no longer trust the process. So the question stops being, why won't they hand it over? And becomes, why is nobody in a hurry to open it? This is Case Desk. Subscribe. The grand jury is coming, and we're tracking every filing, because the friend's entire explanation for how that phone left the island depends on one thing being true, that Nolan chose to stay. Katie McCormack is the 19-year-old they say he stayed behind to talk to. Their story is clean. Nolan wanted to stay, told them to go, said he'd find another ride. Katie's family tells it differently. Katie had a conversation and assumed that Nolan was getting ready to get on the boat he came out on, Gracie McCormack told the Daily Mail. She assumed the friends telling him to board wouldn't have left him. She thought he was getting on the boat. The friends say he refused to get on the boat. Those two things cannot both be true. Ben Crump put it plainly. She's saying he went to get on the boat. They're saying he didn't get on the boat. Somebody must not be telling the truth. And his parents don't accept the rest of it either. They've said they had perfectly fine cell service when they searched that island on July 5th. To me, that's two lies I was told as a father, Elmore Wansley said. Two lies. Follow what that does to the phone. If Nolan never intended to stay behind, then his phone leaving on that boat isn't a mix-up. It's a phone that left with people who knew he wasn't with them. There's one piece of evidence millions of people think they've heard, and there's a serious problem with it. Around 4 in the afternoon on July 4th, one of the friends called Cito as the boat took on water near the west tip of Horn Island. The caller says the bilge pump has stopped and they're sinking. TMZ published an enhanced version of that call, and the internet detonated over what people believe they can hear underneath it. Then digital forensics expert Robert Fried compared the enhanced version to the original. He says he could not corroborate TMZ's claims, and that the TMZ version runs 20 seconds longer than the original and carries a different digital fingerprint. 20 seconds longer. A different digital fingerprint. That's not a minor discrepancy, and it means nothing built on that enhancement can be trusted. But the original raises its own questions. The dispatcher asks basic things. How high is the water? How many people are on board? And the caller can't give clear answers. And you can hear him tell someone on that boat to shut up, in the middle of an emergency call. Who was he telling to be quiet? Forensic audio specialists for the family are reviewing the complete recording. And then there's the part almost nobody is talking about, and it's the hardest fact in this entire case to explain away. Nolan was last seen at the west tip of Horn Island. His body was found at the northwestern tip. Crump said the team is working with oceanic engineering experts on how that's even possible with the tides. 2 days passed. The Gulf has currents. Bodies don't typically stay where they entered the water. Unless he didn't enter the water where they say he did, or unless he didn't enter it when they say he did. That's not the only gap. A newly completed independent analytical review of photographs, videos, GPS coordinates, and witness accounts concluded the available evidence still leaves a material gap in the timeline between Nolan's last independently corroborated sighting and the reported departure of the boat. 22 pages. No conclusion about responsibility. Just a hole. 60 witnesses interviewed. The gap is still there. And there is exactly one piece of evidence that could close it. Now watch what happened to the woman asking for it. On August 5th, Ben Crump issued a statement after Christine Wansley was notified that the Mississippi Board of Nursing had opened a professional misconduct investigation against her, based on an anonymous complaint. According to Crump, she'd spent her entire career caring for patients without a single prior complaint. She had taken leave to bury her child. The complaint came only after she started asking questions publicly. The board closed the case. She has said it was frivolous, unfounded, and never about patient care, an attempt to intimidate a grieving mother into silence. And that wasn't all of it. Supporters say she's been review bombed on her professional profile by people who were never her patients. She received hate mail in the days before her son's funeral. Look at 5 weeks of one woman's life. She lost her son. She was told his phone came back with data missing. She asked for a transparent examination. She got a deadline she couldn't meet. She was publicly accused of refusing to cooperate. Her license was targeted anonymously. That's not coincidence. Meanwhile, commentator Brandon Tatum flew to Mississippi and interviewed the friends on camera, and then flew back and interviewed them a second time. 2 trips by a man with no official role in this investigation. 2 trips, and still nobody had opened the phone. The case is now headed to a Mississippi grand jury. District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath has said every death in the county, except natural causes and non-criminal car wrecks, goes before a grand jury, so a referral doesn't automatically mean charges, and that's fair to say plainly. Family attorney Eric Hertz told NPR it could happen in just under 30 days, mid to late September. Several of Nolan's friends have retained high-profile attorneys over possible wrongful death and defamation suits. They haven't been charged, they're not publicly named as suspects. But that level of legal preparation for what's described as an accident matches people who expect this to escalate. And the Congressional Black Caucus has written to Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel calling for a federal review, with Chair Yvette D. Clarke citing how little local investigators have released. That doesn't happen for every accidental drowning in Mississippi. So let's go back to the question I asked you to hold on to. Was that phone empty because Nolan never used it, or because somebody emptied it? Here's the answer, and it's the reason this case has not moved in 6 weeks. Nobody knows. Because as of the most recent reporting, that phone has still not been forensically examined. Not by the family's experts, not by law enforcement, by anyone. 6 weeks, an 18-year-old is dead, A material gap sits in the middle of his timeline. His body was found where the tides say it shouldn't have been. And the one device that could timestamp every deletion, log every unlock, and map every movement has not been opened by a single forensic examiner. Not because the family refused. They asked for a witness in the room, and the process changed on them twice. Every week there's been a new argument, and every week that phone has sat there. Elmore Wansley said, "They always taught Nolan that if you go with a group, you stay with the group. If you go with 5, you come back with 5. And Nolan always said, yes, sir. If the friend's story is true, a young man made an impulsive decision on a hot July afternoon and paid for it with his life. A real, devastating, preventable tragedy. If it isn't true, then what happened on that island is something else. And the evidence that would show it is sitting on a phone nobody has opened. His name is Nolan Xavier Wells. He was 18, and his mother has spent every day since July 6th fighting, not for vengeance, for answers. The grand jury is coming. When it does, that examination either happens or it doesn't. And that single fact will tell you more about this case than anything anyone says on camera between now and then. One last thing, and I mean it. 3 out-of-state people have been arrested over alleged threats connected to this case, including alleged bomb threats to county offices, and a California man over a threat toward a judge who is the mother of one of Nolan's friends. Threatening people is not justice. It makes this family's fight harder, and it hands ammunition to everyone who wants their questions dismissed as mob behavior. Don't be that. Subscribe so you don't miss the next update. And tell me in the comments, after everything today, what's the one thing you most want that forensic download to answer? For Nolan.